Let's journey back in time. We're going to a rooftop in a sun-drenched city called Joppa, right by the sea. Imagine the salty air, the warmth of the sun on stone, and the distant sound of waves crashing on the shore. This is where we find a man named Peter. Peter wasn't a king or a scholar. He was a fisherman, a man with calloused hands and a straightforward heart. But his life had taken an extraordinary turn. He had walked with Jesus, seen incredible things, and was now one of the foundational leaders of a new, growing faith. On this particular day, around noon, the sun was high and hot. Downstairs, lunch was being prepared, and the delicious smells started to drift up to the rooftop where Peter had gone to pray. As he prayed, a deep hunger began to stir within him, not just for food, but a spiritual hunger too, though he didn't quite understand it yet. 2. He was in that quiet space between wakefulness and sleep, a trance-like state where the world around him faded away. And then he saw something astonishing. The brilliant blue sky seemed to open up, and something began to descend. It wasn't a cloud or a bird. It was huge, like a great white sheet, held at its four corners, being gently lowered down to the earth. As it came closer, Peter's eyes widened, was filled with a bustling, writhing collection of all kinds of animals. He saw four-footed creatures he recognized from the fields and wildlands. He saw reptiles, things that slithered and crawled upon the ground. And he saw birds of every shape and size, their wings fluttering within the confines of the great sheet. It was a living, breathing menagerie, a collection of every creature imaginable, all gathered together in this one miraculous vessel. Peter, being a devout Jew, had lived his entire life by a strict set of rules, especially when it came to food. These laws, given to his people centuries before, were a core part of his identity. They separated the clean from the unclean. Certain animals were permitted to be eaten, while many others were strictly forbidden. It was a line you simply did not cross. It was a way of honoring God, of staying pure and set apart. Sir, you can imagine his shock when a voice, clear and resonant, echoed through his vision. It was a voice that held an undeniable authority, a voice he somehow knew was from God. And it said, "Get up, Peter, kill and eat." Confusion and a jolt of alarm shot through Peter. Eat! Eat these creatures! He looked at the sheet again. There were pigs and lizards, eagles and crabs, all things that his tradition, his faith, his entire upbringing had taught him were unclean. To eat them would be a defilement, a direct violation of God's law as he understood it. His response was immediate, almost instinctive. I have never eaten anything impure or unclean. Think about that for a moment. He wasn't being rebellious. He was being faithful. He was stating his lifelong commitment, his dedication to holiness. In his mind, he was defending his purity, defending the very laws he believed God had established. He was proud of his record, of the fact that he had never, not once, crossed that sacred line. But the voice came again, a profound message that was about to reshape Peter's entire world. The voice said, "Do not call anything impure that God has made clean." Let that sink in. Do not call anything impure that God has made clean. The words hung in the air of his vision, weighty and transformative. This wasn't just about food anymore. Peter was beginning to sense it. This was something bigger. The very foundation of his understanding of clean and unclean was being challenged. The lines he had so carefully drawn his whole life were suddenly being erased by the one who drew them in the first place. This entire scene, the descending sheet, the collection of animals, the command to eat, Peter's objection, pay. And the divine response happened not just once, but 3 times. 3 times the sheet was lowered. 3 times the command was given. 3 times Peter protested. And 3 times The powerful world-altering declaration was made. Do not call anything impure that God has made clean. The repetition was for emphasis. It was to make sure the message burrowed deep into Peter's heart and mind. 2. Break through a lifetime of conditioning and tradition. It was a lesson so important, so crucial for the future, that it had to be repeated until there was no room left for doubt. And then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the great sheet was drawn back up into the heavens, and the vision was over. Peter was left alone on that rooftop, the midday sun still warm on his skin, the scent of cooking food still in the air. But everything had changed. Who's deeply puzzled, turning the vision over and over in his mind. What could it possibly mean? He knew it wasn't just about changing his diet. God didn't perform such a powerful, cinematic vision just to add a few new items to the menu. This was a parable in action. The animals and the sheep represented something more. The unclean creatures were a symbol for people. For generations, Peter and his fellow Jews had seen themselves as clean, and everyone else, the non-Jews, the Gentiles, as unclean. There was a wall between them, a barrier of tradition, culture, and religion. You didn't associate with them, you certainly didn't enter their homes, and you absolutely did not share a meal with them. But now, God was saying, I have made them clean. The barriers you have built are not my barriers. Divisions you see are not my divisions. My love, my grace, my family is open to everyone. Don't you dare call someone unclean whom I have welcomed, whom I have cleansed. As Peter sat there, wrestling with this revolutionary idea, a knock came at the door downstairs. Men had arrived from the house of a Roman centurion, a Gentile named Cornelius. They had been sent to ask Peter to come to their master's house. In that moment, the puzzle pieces began to click into place. The vision wasn't just a strange dream, it was preparation. It was God giving Peter the key he needed to unlock the very next door he was about to walk through. The story, of course, continues. Peter goes to Cornelius's house, breaks with centuries of tradition, and witnesses God's Spirit being poured out on Gentiles, just as it had been on the Jews. But it all started here, on this rooftop. With a hungry fisherman, a heavenly vision, and a simple, powerful message that continues to echo through the ages. God's grace is for everyone. The family of God is wider and more inclusive than we can ever imagine. No one is outside the reach of His love. This moment changed Peter forever. It's a reminder for all of us to look at the people around us, especially those we might consider other or different, and to see them through God's eyes. To see them not as unclean, but as people God has made, God loves, and God has declared clean. Thank you for joining me in this story. If it touched your heart, please consider subscribing for more stories like this. See you next time.